Not long ago, I reviewed a GeForce e-bike, and they do also make scooters. They sent this out to me, which is their GeForce S10. The S10 has collapsible handlebars. It weighs around 15 kilos and has a rear hub motor, which is a peak 800 watts with 65 Newton meters of torque. And then the normal rated wattage out of this motor is 500 watts. The diameter of these tires, they are 10 inches. And we have mechanical disc brakes, which are 140 millimeters. It even does have this right here at the front, which is a tiny little shock to help soak up some of those bumps. A screen here, which has a clear display, that's even a color display. And we do have features like cruise control and even an adjustable handlebar height. So you can drop it or lower it, which you don't normally see on these types of scooters. Now the maximum speed is up to around about 45, 42 kilometers per hour with a maximum range of around 48 kilometers, which is approximately 30 miles. I'll be putting that to the test, of course, in this review. The S10 does have these plastic mudguards, so front and back, and they feel all right, a little cheap feeling. And you'll see our front shock. Now the travel you get out of it is just over an inch, and it is certainly a lot better than nothing. And then the disc below, so ventilated disc, 140 millimeter mechanical disc brakes, so they are not using hydraulic. We have here reasonably good looking welds. Some of the cables are internally routed, and this part here, again, plastic, but the rest of it is metal. The deck does have a lot of room there for my feet. They're using grip tape with the GeForce branding, and the kickstand is sturdy, secure. That doesn't seem to rattle, but there is something that is rattling, which I believe is probably this mudguard here. So the mudguard made out of plastic, and we do have a brake light right here, either side, including indicators. So you can select them to indicate you're turning left or right, and when you apply the brake lever, there is also a secondary brake light within it. The charging port is located on the right-hand side of the frame here. It does have a little rubber gasket to go over it to keep any dust and water out. Now the charge time, it's using a 48-volt system. It will take approximately 6 to 7 hours to fully charge the 12-amp-hour battery. So the folding mechanism and the latch here for the handlebars does have a little security. It's a switch here on the left. You pull that up, then you pull the lever down, and the handlebar simply drops right down like so. The only issue is that it doesn't latch into the mudguard here at the end or onto the frame. So it's just freely just moving about like this. And I don't really like this design choice. It really should hook into something to aid us then lifting this 15-kilo scooter. The hinge here is very sturdy. I like the way it does lock in here with this front pin, and it's got bolts through it. It does seem very safe, very sturdy, and very little play too with this. And I like GeForce's light setup here. So we've got all these LEDs around the outside, which is an always on daytime running LED, nighttime. Whenever you power on the scooter, it is on. In the middle, we've got a cob style LED. It is very bright, as you can see now, using it at nighttime. It will light the path up ahead of you. That improves your safety, others can see you, and overall a very bright, good headlight that comes with this GeForce S10. The S10 does not use lock grips, as you can see. They're just standard kind of rubber ones, but the good thing is they do not spin around. They're on there, quite strong, they're quite tight, and they don't feel like they're going to come off or start twisting around, which can be annoying. Brake levers, they do feel good. So here we have our controls. So the middle button is to power it on or off. We have a horn. I'll give you a quick sample of that. Oh, but I need to power it on first, of course, which I've just done. So you hold down for about 2 or 3 seconds. It's reasonably loud, the horn. It could be a bit louder than our indicators for left and right. So using those, it turns on the indicators on the rear. We only have them on the rear. They're not particularly bright. You can't really see them during daytime, but at nighttime, yes. But they're not, again, that bright there. So the top button here, this turns on the front headlight and the rear tail light. And then just holding this down again for a couple of seconds will power off the scooter. And on the right, our accelerator. And you have to be very careful with this because if I press it now, the scooter will just take off. So you just use your thumb there. You've got access to the brake using your thumb, and it does have a cruise control feature too. If you keep holding it down, it'll eventually lock on that speed. You need to tap it again or tap the brakes to disable the cruise control. and our display, which does have a little bit of color in it. Now you can see it in direct sunlight. At the moment, you can see the screen is acting really strange. That's to do with my camera shutter rate. So it doesn't look like that in person. We've got our battery gauge, our speed, trip, and our 3 different power levels. So you've got 1, 2, and 3, and each have a different speed to them. So level 1 will get us up to about 18 kilometers per hour. Level 2 is around about 27 kilometers per hour. And level 3 is then the maximum speed, which you can achieve around about 38 to sometimes just over 40 kilometers per hour. So I like the ride height of this scooter. I think it's reasonably good. I like it's a little bit higher than others with those 10-inch wheels. Now they are tubeless, air-filled ones, and we've got a lot of room there too. I don't find that my feet feel like they're crammed in here. Now I've got plenty of space for them. So getting on the scooter, just like any other, we've got the kickstand, get that out of the way here. And because it's set up that I can just press the accelerator, it'll just take off. So you must be really careful with that, because if you're not ready for it, you accidentally touch it, you can dislocate your shoulder, or even worse, just have it just go off on you. So I've got it in the first level here with the speed, and that will take me up to 18 kilometers per hour, which is good for just cruising along here. If there's a few people about and whatnot, then it's nice to have these lower speed settings. Now putting it onto level 2 then takes that speed limit up to about 26, 27 kilometers per hour. And then speed limit 3, you'll be able to get it up to around 32 and over kilometers per hour. But I'm going to keep it for the duration of my tests here just in that level 2. That's what I'll be using, because I want to stick to that 25 kilometers per hour, which is of course the legal limit here in Spain where I'm testing this out. So brilliant day, really nice smooth ride. Handlebar height, you can adjust it up and down so you can get it where it's perfect and just feels right for you, nice and comfortable. And I haven't noticed that front suspension really coming into play, not with conditions at the moment, when I mean the road surfaces here at the moment being relatively smooth, but I'll get onto some rougher stuff later on. Now the motor, can't really hear it that much. It's not a loud motor, but it may be a bit louder when it gets up to its 800 peak when I do have some climbs. Now I've got a little curb up here, a little step. I should be able to just lift up that front wheel, go up this, and then drop down. And there I did feel the shock, just a tiny little bit there, giving me only about 1 inch of travel, but it's better than nothing. And one feature I do like about it, it has cruise control. So I hold down the accelerator and then now I can release. I'm still doing the speed there that I've set, and this is great. So cruising along here without having to hold down that accelerator the whole time. Now to disengage it is like any other. You tap the brakes or you tap that accelerator again, and then it comes off and it will eventually start to slow down again. And so that's a good little safety thing. You're easily able to disable that cruise control. And then just up ahead, I do have some gravel, light stones and whatnot. It isn't an off-road scooter. I can hear now something rattling now and then. I believe it's either the rear mudguard just clattering away, or maybe the battery. And it handled that just fine. Now I am running 40 PSI because I don't want any pinch flats. Not that it would happen. So I could lower the pressure of the tires down a bit to help improve the comfort, but it is smooth. Climb test now. So this is about a 20-degree climb, and it's doing it reasonably well here, slowing down to about 14, 15 kilometers. But the likes of the Xiaomi electric scooter 4 Pro, I would have to start kicking now, and some of those other scooters, especially the 250 watt scooters, just can't handle a climb this steep. So although I'm only doing now 10 to 11 kilometers per hour, it is able to do this climb, whereas others just cannot. And that is because it has the 500 watt motor with the 800 watts peak and 65 Newton meters of torque. And then my emergency braking test. So as soon as I get to the white post there and approximately 30 kilometers per hour, full on emergency brake, 1, 2, 3. Pretty good. I did end up locking up the rear brake a little, but excellent locking performance. Now in the wet, of course, you want to be really careful with that front wheel. You don't want to apply too much pressure to that one. It's just like being on a scooter or a motorcycle in the wet. You've got to be quite careful with your braking, but in dry conditions like this, you can, yes, do an emergency brake as I just showed you, and stop in a reasonably good distance. Now then, onto the range. They say it can do approximately 48 kilometers or 30 miles with its 12 amp hour battery. And I'm looking at a range of short of 30 kilometers. This is me using mostly the power level 2, but with some climbs around here. And 28 kilometers in miles, I'm not really too sure what that figure is, but it's now being displayed on the screen anyway. I think as average, there's no way I can really get, I believe, well, not with my weight of 82 kilos, anywhere near their claim of being 30 miles or the 48 kilometers. So the top speed there is reasonably good, around about 38. You can get it up to 38 kilometers per hour. I kept to level 2 because that was around then 25 kilometers per hour, which is the limit here that we have to use. So because of the peak 800 watts and then the 65 newton meters of torque, climbing performance is reasonably good and a lot better than, say, those Xiaomi scooters, which only have, you know, the low power motors. And being rear wheel drive, I do like it, and the fact that it's got the dual brakes too. So disc brakes are not only just the rear, but also the front with it is good, and excellent braking performance, good feel too with the levers. Now, probably one of the biggest complaints for me with this scooter is this, and I'll show you and demonstrate it here, is that when you drop the handlebars down, there is nowhere to latch it, as I mentioned when we looked at the design. So it doesn't lock into this right here. And that means when you go to lift it up, it's a little more awkward. And I find I have to grab hold of it about here. You have to be careful with your fingers too with the front fork. And then where the stand is, and I'm able then to be able to lift it up. And weight-wise, it's about 15 kilos. So it isn't too bad, but because the handlebar doesn't latch into it, it's just a little bit more awkward to carry. And I hope in the future designs, they can incorporate some sort of hook on here that does then hook into the rear mudguard or on the rear. So it just makes it a lot easier to be able to lift it up. Besides that, it is reasonably good, actually very good, the build quality. The front handlebar really doesn't have any play to it. It feels very secure. The welds look really good. And then that front shock only helps out a little bit with a few bumps and things, but it's a minor bit of travel, around about 1 inch just over. It's better than nothing. And then the air-full tires, of course. They're not solid tires, but they do help soak up some of those bumps. Cruise control is handy, good display, and I like the fact that I can raise and drop the handlebar here too, is another great feature of this, and plenty of room for my feet there. Now, the pricing of it, at the time of me doing this review, it is about $800 US, and they may later on have discounts or whatnot for it, but I don't think it's too bad considering you're getting that extra power and a few extras that other scooters don't typically have there. So thank you so much for watching my review here of the GeForce S10 e-scooter.